My name is Helen Howard, and I'm a birder. If this were an AA meeting, you'd all say welcome. But in general, most people kind of back away, and they think I'm a little strange and things like this. I was really lucky. I grew up in a birding family. My father had his first job with Roger Torrey Peterson banding geese and ducks in Long Island. I was lucky enough that Peterson remained a good friend of the family's. He's also my godfather. So every time, once I learned to write, every time we went birding, I got to make a little list and send it to him to show him exactly what I was learning. I moved down to ASU to go to school in 1968 after spending 2 years at Berkeley. And absolutely amazing at the different birds that there were down here in the desert, and I'd never been to the desert before. All of us are using this map for whatever reason. We have different types of birds in this area. We have birds that live here all year round, and we have birds that migrate through small distances, and we have birds that migrate through for long distances. So we can get birds that come through here that might be only here for a week, moving through Arizona, but most of them are going to be in the river corridor, and things have changed a lot in the 50 years that I have been birding here. It's 360 miles of the Colorado River from Lake Mead, where South Cove starts at the very end of Lake Mead, where the Colorado River ends, going all the way down through Morales Dam at the Mexican border. And we're really lucky that we have a variety of different birds here. Got these figures written down. I'm going to go to my notes. There are 2,059 different bird species found in North America. There are 1,267 species found in Canada, Mexico, and the United States. There are 1,120 species of birds found in the 50 states, and 146 found in U.S. territories that are also in North America. There are 914 found in the lower 48 states, and there are 562 species found in Arizona. There are 415 species found along the Colorado River out here in the section that we run. If I'm really lucky, I get to spend about 100 days a year on rivers. And you know that old saying, if you don't have a photograph, it didn't happen? In many cases, those of us who bird also do lists of birds. And for the last 15 years, there's been a process where you can submit those lists on a computer to eBird, which is part of the Cornell University. You can eBird all over the United States and all over the world. So purple is where they're getting a lot of different reports every year. There are 800,000 people in the United States who are submitting at least one report a year, and about 200,000 of those people are submitting more than 300 reports a year. And one of the things that's really important about doing is a lot of the birds that sometimes appear over here don't show up very often. Back in 1992, I was taking one of my grandsons to the zoo, and this is a bird called a varied thrush. It lives mostly over in the scrubs right along the coast of California. If we have a storm, occasionally one will get blown over here. In 1992, when I was taking my grandson to the zoo, there were 300 photographers standing around the pond at the center snack bar trying to take a picture of a varied thrush that showed up for about 9 weeks and stayed there eating crumbs, because that's what they eat if they can find them. And 2 years ago, we had a storm that blew through. I was sitting at Willow Beach at the picnic tables at the store, and there was a varied thrush in with the sparrows that were eating crumbs from the picnic tables. So I did my e-board on it, and I sent my report in with a little note that said I had pictures, and the person who reviews those said, show us the pictures. We did, and that was only one of 2 varied thrushes that were in Arizona that whole year. So we get a better idea of what the distribution of birds is because of everyone who's turning in eBirds and people who are going out studying. What we're doing is what's called citizen science. I'm not a trained ornithologist, but I've been doing it for a very long time, and I'm lucky enough to get asked to go and do things like that fairly frequently. We're lucky enough to have a whole bunch of wildlife refuges over in our area. The Havasu National Wildlife Refuge was founded in 1941, and it has 37,515 acres, and that's divided into the Topak Marsh, which is a really incredible spot that was basically built over some wasteland to replace some of the wetlands that were being destroyed by the filling of Lake Mojave. And it's divided into 2 sections. This is the map of the marsh, which is an incredible place for catching catfish, and it's an incredible place for birding, especially in the winter. Some of the places over there, we may have as many as 5,000 snow geese that come down and stay for a week or more at the coldest part of the winter. You never know where you're going to see birds. As I own a kayak business, so we're frequently delivering birds and delivering kayaks to beaches. This is Lake Mojave, and it's Telephone Cove. We expect to see the ring-billed gulls. We don't expect to see the Franklin terns, and there are 4 of them sitting there on the beach with the gulls, and the jet skis, and the power boats, and the kids playing, and the dogs running around. You just never know where you're going to see something that might be just a little bit unusual. This is the map on the Havasu of both the marsh and the Topak Gorge, the river part of the thing going into Lake Havasu, just 15.9 miles long. Great kayak or canoe trip, as long as you do it in the wintertime when there aren't any powerboats or jet skis out there. We have a variety of different birds on the refuges. This is a fairly common one year-round. It's a red-tailed hawk, one of the major raptors that we have out there. And I've been lucky enough to do a lot of work with several really good birders there who have been looking for birds and reporting them for up to 30 years. This is Didi Di Lorenzo, and we're at Goose Lake, which is on the marsh. And we frequently would do, for about 5 years, we did a Friday morning count out there, and there were quite a few times when we'd get 90 species of birds. We also, when we were there in the winter, would would find nests and then mark them so that the people who were out, this particular one is a verdin nest. A verdin is not something that is threatened in any way, but quite frequently we would find other nests like the southwest willow flycatcher nests that you couldn't really see when the trees were in leaf, but if we notified them where they were, they had a better idea where to go find them in the spring when they were out looking for birding or for breeding. At the south end of Lake Havasu, we have the Bill Williams River National Wildlife Refuge. And it's a pretty interesting area. The Bill Williams River actually flowed down to the Colorado River. For those of you who have been on the Colorado River, what you're seeing now is nothing at all like what it was before 1840. In the 1840s, they brought some steamships out from the East Coast and put them together, and then they used those to ply the Colorado River at high water in the spring because they could only be out there during runoff. And one of the only ways out there of getting cold, hard cash in your pocket was to cut wood all winter long and then schlep it to the edge of the river and sit and wait for the steamships to go by. And they needed a pretty endless source of wood to keep those steamships running. There wasn't a lot of wood out there, and it didn't regenerate. So instead of all the cottonwoods and the 1/4 mile of mesquite boskies or thickets that you ended up with areas that had a lot of runoff and a lot of erosion and things like that. So the Bill Williams River, from 2 miles up from the refuge headquarters, still has the very last remaining section of native riparian habitat on the entire Colorado River system. And it's only about 1.5 miles long, but it's pretty amazing. We're seeing cottonwood trees and sycamore trees that have trunks that are maybe 6 feet in diameter. It's pretty nice. This is the river itself. When you leave the refuge headquarters, it flows into Lake Havasu. And the other nice thing about it is that they dammed up the river to make the Alamo Reservoir, but Lake Havasu filled before they finished the Alamo Reservoir, so all those trees up there always had water at their roots the way they're supposed to. So it looks very much the way it used to. It's really a lot of fun up in there. When I first moved to Arizona in 1968, if you wanted to see, we have, I think almost everyone here probably, if they've been on a river, have seen a bird called a double-crested cormorant. It's really common. It's a fishing bird. There are about 15 different varieties of cormorants all over the world. If you wanted to see the next closest cormorant, it would be a neotropic cormorant. In 1968, to see one, you had to go to Mexico. You had to go to Mazatlan, because that's as far north as they were. This is a neotropic cormorant that is at the Bill Williams River National Wildlife Refuge. They're breeding there now. And you know, it's really amazing. They're quite a bit different than a double-crested cormorant. They're only about 2/3 the size. The dimensions of the tail, the body, and the head are different. A double-crested cormorant has a great, big, huge, thick body, a short tail, and a short head. The neotropic cormorant is more divided in thirds, and it's also 2/3 the size. The thing about that is that, you know, if it took 50 years or 45 years until we started seeing it up here, you think it's going to take a little bit longer for it to get elsewhere. So I did the Missouri River this June, which is in Montana, more than 1,000 miles north. And guess what? They're getting neotropic cormorants that are making it all the way up to Montana and Idaho now. So the birds are moving at a pretty fast rate all over the western United States along the rivers. American white pelicans. They breed up in the Great Salt Lake. They spend the winters down in our refuges and the Great Salton Sea, and then on down into Mexico. They're also getting American white pelicans. We had over 300 of them up on the Missouri River this summer. The next one down is the Cibola National Wildlife Refuge, and it is a small refuge that's mostly farming area just south of Blythe. In the wintertime, it has anywhere between 5,000 and 10,000 sandhill cranes on it. It's almost as big as the Bosque de Apache and some of the other crane places over in New Mexico and in southeastern Arizona. And then the Imperial National Wildlife Refuge extends 20 miles. It starts 20 miles north of Yuma, and it's in the Martinez Lake and the Fisher's Landing area. There are times down there when we'll see a couple thousand ducks in a day. In the wintertime, I frequently boat down there in January. Now, this is a crested caracara. This is another bird. It used to not be found above Mazatlan. I saw it a couple miles above Mazatlan when I was there in '69. 1995, I've been lucky enough to have 2 photographs on the front page of the Arizona Republic. In 1995, I'm coming across in our motorhome with my grandkids in it at the border crossing at Sonoyta. And there's a crested caracara eating a rabbit on the security road that goes right along the fence. So I pull over, jump out, grab my camera, get a picture. I send it to Audubon saying, hey, we've got a new Mexican migrant over here. Look what I found. And 2 weeks later, it shows up on the front page of the Arizona Republic because no one had seen it. Now there are populations of 200 to 300 of them in an acre, and a lot of the fields out in the Buckeye area. They're a great eater of grasshoppers. This is a large bird. It's almost the same size as our bald eagle is. And really distinctive and also really beautiful to see it fly. 6 years ago, we had one in Mojave County on our Christmas bird count. We have two different types of migration. You have seasonal migration, which is what these maps show. Our area is part of the Pacific Flyway. And then you also have the Central American Flyway that goes on either side of the Rocky Mountains. And occasionally we'll get birds over in the Pacific Flyway that normally are only seen towards the Rocky Mountains. And sometimes you'll get birds in that area that are usually only seen in our area. You also then have the types of migrations where birds are spreading into different areas, which the crested caracara, the neotropic cormorant, several other birds are like that. The Colorado River, this is a January photograph, and you can't really see it, but there are a lot of coots out there on the river, and also mallards, and the typical of the type of ducks that we get in the winter, eating either grass or eating fish, depending upon what their food source is. But this is the sort of river that we have out here. We usually have between 27,000 CSF coming out of Davis Dam down to 4,000 CSF coming down. This is below Parker Dam, or below Headgate, Lost Headgate Dam, and then above the dam right above Blythe. Mostly what we have for kayaking is either urban or mostly agricultural or wildlife refuges, and those pretty much are the three different types of kayaking. But whenever you're on the river, you've got a really good eye view of what's out there, either drinking from the water and then moving up into the land that they normally occupy, or staying next to the water. I've transposed a couple of numbers. About 3 years ago in 2019, three of us went out and did a Christmas bird count. And a Christmas bird count is a count that's done once a year, usually somewhere between the 15th of December and the 5th of January. And it really, there are about 2,500 count circles, which are 15 miles in diameter, that people volunteer to go and count in. And Darren, Melissa, where are you? The three of us counted, I'm sorry, I had typed this wrong. It's 24,000 birds in 5 hours is what we counted on the Christmas bird count in 2019. And that's in one 6-mile section that we were in kayaking with down the river. And you meet some of the nicest people on the river. This is Brad and Andy and RJ, and Dawn was along on that one, and Surprise Canyon, Cataract, and Cottonwood, and then one of the little Doriacs is the little brown one right over up against the rock, which is where I got a chance to try that boat. It's a lot of fun. And that's Darren and Melissa in the kayaks. Some of the birds that we see are, you never know where you're going to see them. This photograph actually was taken at Lee's Ferry, and this is a young female common merganser, a Say's phoebe, American white pelican, sandhill crane, black-necked stilts, reddish egret. This is another bird that normally is found 500 miles south in Mexico, and this particular one is at Davis Camp. And this is the neotropic cormorant that I photographed at the Bill Williams, and again, 1,000 miles farther north in Idaho. Thank you very much.